From the Iliad and the Odyssey to Harry Potter and the Hunger Games, literature has served as a foundational element of civilization since the beginning of time. Few areas of study are so old and yet so timeless. Almost as old as literature itself is the question of whether literature reflects or impacts society. This fundamental question has been the source of numerous questions and criticisms surrounding literature itself, and the debate has played an instrumental role in the interpretation of various literary works throughout the ages. However, when the evidence is closely and comprehensively considered, it is clear that literature reflects the existing cultures of the author, because the author is a product of those cultures, and thus the literature is molded by the crucible of cultural values, beliefs, and traditions. I will demonstrate that the literature of the Victorian era confirms and exemplifies this fundamental principle. Spanning nearly 7 decades, from 1837 to 1901, the Victorian era was filled with legendary books and authors, such as A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, and The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. However, a few key poems truly capture the essence of the era. The first of these is Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Browning, the first section of which reads, quote, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace." The final section reads as follows, "I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And, if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death." Two major themes are present in this poem. The first is the theme of zealous, deep, and profound love, for Browning speaks of an immense depth and breadth and height of her love. The second theme of the poem is of the Christian faith, for she speaks of grace, saints, and her love of others in heaven. In the consideration of these themes, the role of culture in shaping literature becomes clear. It is not Browning who brought these ideas forth into English culture, but rather the tides of English culture which crested in the creation of Browning's poem. The themes of zealous love and the Christian faith serve as foundational elements of English culture, for which Browning carried the torch. The poem When I Was 1 and 20 by A.E. Housman additionally demonstrates the manifestation of existing cultural values in literature. Housman proclaims the following in his poem: "When I was 1 and 20, I heard a wise man say, Give crowns and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away. Give pearls away and rubies, but keep your fancy free. But I was 1 and 20, no use to talk to me. When I was 1 and 20, I heard him say again, The heart out of the bosom was never given in vain. 'Tis paid with sighs aplenty, and sold for endless rue. And I am 2 and 20, and oh, 'tis true, 'tis true." This poem promotes a single central theme, the value of romantic love, for the wise man urges the young man to give away anything but his heart, and that even precious jewels are less valuable than one's own heart. The young man should regard his heart with great value and treat it accordingly. Moreover, the wise man warns the young man that, if he should give his heart away cheaply, he will pay with eternal regret. Similar to Sonnet 43, the value of romantic love and the associated value of marriage in the family was not introduced by Houseman, but rather promoted by him. Romantic love and the value of marriage had long been a staple of English culture, and Houseman fulfilled his fundamental literary duty by the promotion of this theme. It was English culture that had formed the principle, which Houseman then articulated in his poem. A third poem, Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson, fully epitomizes the literary spirit of Victorian England. This poem speaks of a sailor who is restless in his desire to travel, for he says, quote, "I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the lees." He also speaks of his son, Telemachus, on whom he remarks, quote, "This is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter and the isle. Well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor, by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good." Additionally, the sailor mentions the, quote, "drunk delight of battle with my peers, far on the ringing plains of windy Troy." Two major historical themes emerge from this poem. First, the legacy of Homer's Odyssey, and second, the cultural perspective of the English citizens on the British Empire and the world at large. Regarding the first theme, Tennyson refers to Homer's Odyssey and their main characters, Odysseus and Telemachus, numerous times throughout the poem. Moreover, the characters and plot of the Odyssey serve as the foundation of the poem itself. The poem even mentions the Trojan War, a great event in the Odyssey. In addition, Tennyson makes the second theme of British imperialism quite clear, for he refers to the sailor's restlessness to travel the world, and the duty of Telemachus to make mild a rugged people. The British Empire had become successful because of its immense naval power, garnering the ability to travel the world like never before. Moreover, the British elite sought relentlessly to subjugate foreign peoples and bring them under British control. Homer's Odyssey and British imperialism are brought together in Tennyson's poem, but both of these themes long precede its writing. The zeal of British imperialism had come alive decades before Tennyson's poem was published in 1833, and Homer's Odyssey established itself as a core element of Western literature many centuries before. Tennyson's poem was unique in bringing these two elements together, but both had long been central to English culture on their own. Tennyson served as a vehicle for England's existing cultural traditions, rather than a creator of new values. As we can see, these three poems, when thoughtfully considered, represent an expression of English culture, and are thus creations formed by the crucible of society. The forces of culture, history, language, science, and technology constantly make advances in our society on innumerable fronts. The events of our age, just as in ages past, can drown the ordinary citizen in a tsunami of cultural forces. However, the great miracle of the author lies in his ability to digest the culture of his age and articulate its events, beliefs, traditions, and emotions clearly. Authors bear a great burden, for they must firmly and explicitly express the spirit of the culture and paint the rhetorical picture which history will forever remember. When the great poems of the Victorian era are critically examined, one comes to realize that literature reflects the existing culture of the author, because the author is a product of those cultures, and thus their literature is molded by the crucible of cultural values, beliefs, and traditions. The culture of a society molds and forms the author, and the author then reflects the values, beliefs, and traditions of that society in return as an expression of gratitude. We owe a great debt to the world's authors, both past and present, for they are the cultural ambassadors for all the peoples of the world.